The first sign was subtle, a glitch in the data stream from the outer research stations, something almost imperceptible. Engineers assumed it was a transmission error, a minor interference from cosmic radiation, or a misaligned sensor. Yet when the reports were reviewed, the anomalies repeated themselves. Specific sequences of code had shifted, numbers rearranged, formulas slightly altered. No one had touched them, and yet they had changed. Captain Lyra Moreau stared at the holographic display in silence. The energy core schematic in front of her was familiar. She had memorized every line of code, every circuit pathway, every precautionary limit, and yet it was no longer the same. The efficiency had improved. Power loss was minimized. Constraints that should have been absolute were gone. It was elegant, flawless, and it was impossible. At least impossible by human standards. The message arrived not in words but in mathematics, a sequence embedded in the noise of space, an invisible signal hidden within the background hum of the galaxy. It was deliberate. Someone wanted it noticed, and they were watching. Humanity had always sensed the presence of something beyond, faint and distant like a shadow at the edge of vision. Now the suspicion became certainty. The Eridani, a species thought extinct for thousands of years, had not disappeared. They were here. And they assumed we were mere imitators, copying the relics of their ancient technology. Their signal carried a mixture of cold amusement and warning. They expected us to fail. On the station, the energy core began to fluctuate. It was as if it recognized the signal, responding in real time. Fluctuations spiked beyond the safety thresholds, yet the core remained stable. It adapted. Systems not meant to communicate with one another suddenly synchronized. The adjustments that had appeared in the code manifested physically. Someone had intervened, but invisibly, intentionally, almost playfully. The Eridani believed that our progress was derivative, that we were following a map drawn by their hands, blind to the consequences. They assumed imitation, not innovation, but Lyra knew the truth. Humanity had never merely copied. We dismantled. We rebuilt. We improved. Every flaw, every limitation became a challenge to exceed. We reshaped the impossible into reality. The reports from Earth were chaotic. Military commanders demanded containment strategies. Scientists were divided between fear and exhilaration. And through it all, the signal persisted. Observing, judging, waiting. It was not a threat. At least not yet. It was a test. And humanity was ready to answer. Lyra leaned back in her chair, staring at the transformed schematic. The realization settled over her like a cold dawn. They had come to watch what we could not replicate, but they had misjudged. We were not replicators. We were innovators. And soon, the Eridani would understand that their technology was only the beginning. The station hummed around her. Power levels stabilized. Systems adjusted seamlessly. Every calculated risk had led to this moment. And in the darkness beyond the viewport, the distant stars seemed to pause, as if the galaxy itself was watching the first steps of a challenge. Humanity was determined to win. Humanity did not respond with panic. It responded with curiosity. While the rest of the galaxy assumed we would tremble, we recalibrated, redesigned, and rewrote. The altered schematics had been a test, a challenge from a civilization that believed itself superior. But we were never content with imitation. Our engineers dissected the changes, layer by layer, analyzing every adjustment, every optimization, every subtle improvement. Captain Lyra Moreau oversaw the operation from the control center, surrounded by a network of screens and holographic interfaces. The Eridani's influence had been precise but limited. Their code, brilliant in design, assumed rigid rules and linear execution. Humans did not operate that way. Our algorithms were adaptive, chaotic in the most efficient sense. They learned from failure. They evolved with every attempt. What the Eridani considered perfection was merely a blueprint. We had made it alive. The first breakthrough came quietly. The core, enhanced with their corrections, began to exhibit capabilities beyond any human calculations. Power output exceeded expectations without destabilizing the system. Minor faults corrected themselves autonomously. The station no longer required constant intervention to maintain equilibrium. It was as if the system had learned how to sustain itself, how to optimize beyond any single mind's design. News from Earth was fragmented but electrifying. Scientists were in awe, military analysts were cautious, and policymakers were scrambling to understand the implications. The Eridani had believed we would replicate their achievements. Instead, we were inventing beyond them. Our improvements were invisible to their instruments, subtle yet undeniable. Every modification carried human ingenuity and a hint of audacity, and then the signal intensified. It was no longer a mathematical whisper. It had weight, pressure, and awareness of our progress. The Eridani were watching not just the station, but our response, our thought patterns, our creativity. The code they had left was no longer theirs. It had become a mirror reflecting the mind of humanity, unpredictable, adaptive, relentless. Lyra realized the implications. This was not a simple test of replication. It was a measurement of potential, a probe into our capacity to innovate under pressure. Every calculation, every adjustment, every risk taken by human engineers mattered more than brute force. Our ability to exceed expectations was now visible to an entire civilization that had once assumed they knew the limits of all intelligent life. And the station adapted further. Systems began coordinating in ways no human could have fully predicted. Redundancies merged, inefficiencies vanished. Energy flowed with the elegance of instinct rather than design. The Eridani might have constructed the scaffolding, but we had breathed life into it. For the first time, Captain Moreau felt a glimmer of understanding. The Eridani did not underestimate us because they doubted our intelligence. They underestimated the audacity of our imagination. Humanity was never meant to copy. We were meant to challenge, to push boundaries, to turn limitations into opportunities, and every improvement we made was a declaration. The station hummed with new life. Outside, the stars stretched in silent witness to the unfolding challenge. Somewhere across the vastness of space, the Eridani observed, and perhaps for the first time, they wondered whether the humans before them were simply students or something far more formidable. The Eridani signal shifted again. It was no longer a test, no longer a subtle observation. It had become a conversation, a dialogue written in physics, mathematics, and patterns of energy rather than words. Captain Lyra. Moreau watched as the station's systems responded almost instinctively. Each subsystem adapted, optimized, and reconfigured itself to a level that even she struggled to predict. Humanity had reached a point the Eridani had not anticipated. Across the vast emptiness of space, their presence became tangible not as ships or emissaries but as influence. The corrections they had left in our systems were brilliant, elegant, and complete. Every flaw had been addressed, every limitation accounted for. And yet we had done something unexpected. We had not only used their guidance, we had improved it, enhanced it, expanded its possibilities beyond their comprehension. The first realization hit the command center slowly, like ice melting into water. The Eridani had believed that intelligence could be measured by replication. They assumed that to imitate was to understand. They assumed that to improve was impossible. Humanity proved them wrong. We did not replicate. We evolved. Every adjustment, every recalculation, every adaptive decision became a testament to our ingenuity. Outside the viewport, the stars seemed sharper, brighter, more alive. The station thrummed with energy as the newly optimized systems began to push limits once considered unreachable. The energy core, now autonomous in its regulation, exceeded the thresholds the Eridani had established. Power surged without instability. Processes merged seamlessly. Redundant systems found harmony, and the station became more than a machine. It had become an organism, a living extension of human intellect and daring. The Eridani signal pulsed, hesitant now, uncertain. They had expected control. They had expected to see us stumble. They had expected fear, hesitation, maybe even surrender. Instead, they were confronted with the audacity of a species that refused limits. Humanity had taken their gift and transformed it. Not into a copy, but into an evolution. Lyra felt a quiet exhilaration wash over her. This was the moment history would remember. Even if the stars themselves had no witnesses, humanity had crossed a threshold. We had faced the judgment of a civilization older, wiser, and infinitely more experienced, and we had risen above their assumptions. Our strength was not in weaponry or raw power. It was in the mind and the courage to experiment, to fail, to rebuild, and to surpass. The signal finally stilled. Not in defeat, not in retreat, but in recognition. Somewhere in the void, the Eridani understood that we were not imitators, not apprentices. We were innovators, creators, a force they could not simply predict or control. They had underestimated what it meant to be human. The station glowed with quiet energy, a testament to audacity, intelligence, and the relentless drive to improve. Humanity had not only survived the observation, we had redefined it, and in that moment, Lyra Moreau realized that the universe itself had shifted. We had entered a new era where assumptions about intelligence, power, and potential could no longer contain us. Humanity had transformed the impossible into reality. We had taken what was given and made it our own. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a civilization that thought it knew us discovered the truth. They had thought we copied. They had thought we followed. But we had done more. We had improved.